Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome into the channel. Thank you for joining me. Got a little Shark Week going on again all week long. Don't forget about Shark Week. But I want to talk to you guys today about a topic that comes up in the Facebook group from time to time, and it came up yesterday. So I figured I would make the video tonight. And that is hiring employees versus hiring virtual assistants. So I kind of want to do a pro and a con video of VAs versus a employee in person in your house. So what's a VA, a virtual assistant? That's hiring somebody. Typically it's from overseas. The Philippines, Southeast Asia, India are pretty popular locations with hiring VAs. You can get them. Question I get all the time is where to find a VA. Generally you can get them on Fiverr, Upwork. There's some other sites that you can get them from in Google that are similar. Also, there are people that advertise to do it here in America, like domestically, but generally they charge more. We'll go over those pros and cons in a minute. Also, if somebody tells you that they're a VA and they're doing all of the work manually, like sharing your items or listing for you, we're talking about generally like a VA or an employee who might do listings for you, maybe some shipping, but listing specifically. I know a lot of the Poshmark shares use those. If they're doing an obscene amount of number of shares or a number of items for a little bit of money, they're using a program or a bot or software. If somebody's doing it manually, you'll know hours versus time and money and all that stuff. But let's talk about eBay listings or listing and cross-posting in general, VA versus employee that you have in person. So I'm kind of going to do like employee at the top here and VA at the top here. And then I'll just pop some pros and cons down here for you guys. So employees, pros versus cons. So the pros for an employee, one, you have them in person, right? Like they're right here. They can do the whole job and they can photograph, list, do the whole thing start to finish. You can teach them, you can train them, you can do everything right down the line with them. Huge plus. You get to know them. Another plus, which is going to sound bad, don't take this the wrong way, it's just true, is that there's usually not a language barrier. With a lot of VAs, there's a lot of language barriers that happen. So having an American, and if you're watching this video from somewhere other than America or somebody that doesn't speak English or does speak English or whatever, that's just most of my audience. So that's kind of what I'm catering it to, and I apologize. It's nothing meant to be offensive or anything like that. It's just simply that's just the case. Most VAs, if you hire them overseas, there is a little bit of a language barrier and a communication barrier. It just happens. I've worked with a lot of them. So that's a pro number two. Obviously, you have them there. Pro number three is that you can audit their work. You can train them the way you want it done. You can look over their work before it's finished. And that's just a very good perk of the job. Another pro to having an employee in front of you is that you can expense them. You can take the expenses for their payroll or their payroll tax or 1099 or whatever it is. It's an expense. It's tax deductible. You can also deduct the VA, which we'll talk about in a minute. That's also a pro for them. But that's another big thing. And those are like really the important sides of having an employee. You can hire a stay-at-home mom, a college kid, you can hire a high school senior, you can hire somebody in the neighborhood who needs a job, which is probably what I'm gonna end up doing. I've had employees in the past. I'm probably gonna go forward with that. So again, because I just have way too much stuff between the inventory you guys have seen in the storage unit, between that sets of boxes of clothing, the inventory that's in my garage, you'll see in just a minute, all the stuff, thousands of pieces. I have another order coming of 1,800 units. I may have an order of tens of thousands of units coming. I just got to get stuff done. So I'm probably going to go the employee route. But at the end of this video, I want you guys to put in the comment section, if you have an employee or if you use a VA, what you use them for, and approximately how much you spend on them, what you pay them, and what it breaks down to, whatever you feel comfortable. Don't give us their information or any of that kind of your private stuff, but just in general, if you could comment so we can see, it'll help me maybe, how you pay them, piecework, hourly, how much, etc. And it'll help other people who are maybe in the market for some help as well. So what are the cons of having an employee? Well, they cost more money than a VA because you have to pay them, anywhere from $10 to $15 an hour. You have to pay them by the piece. That comes out to be fair. You have to put them on payroll. If you're going to do payroll with W-2 and payroll tax, or you have to 1099 them, that's a little bit more work. So that's a con. Putting in the work to set them up on payroll or to set them up as a 1099 is a little bit of work. Other cons, you have to have them come to your house. Like they have to come in my house and list, or you have to have an office or a warehouse. My stuff's at storage now and not the warehouse, so there'd be nowhere for them to really go and work unless I rent another office, which I don't really want to do right now. In this economy and leases and signing papers, I just rather stay away from that expense right now. So that's another con. You have to have somewhere for them to work or something for them to do. Really, outside of that, the employee side of it is pretty easy, right? The only other con I can think of is that they could learn how to do what you do and steal your business model and go out and do it themselves. Now, do I think most of them will? No, most people are lazy. Most people won't do it on their own, but there's a chance that some of them could. So just something food for thought to keep in mind. So that is kind of the pros and cons of an employee that you have in person. Okay, so the pros and cons of having a VA. So a VA, somebody you hire off Fiverr or off of Facebook or wherever you find them, overseas generally is going to be cheaper. So they'll charge you $2, $3, $4 an hour, very, very cheap. They'll charge you 50 cents an item. There's a lot of things that they can do much cheaper than workers here in America can do. It's just a fact of life and a fact of world politics and world economy. They just work cheaper. That's just it. And some people would, say that that's bad and you shouldn't do that, but that's just, they offer it, right? It's economics. It's the way they make money. It's how they survive and put food on the table, and it's good money for a lot of them. A lot of them can't make that much money in their own country, and that's why they're on these sites offering these services. Number two, the pro is that generally they work faster. They can get stuff done. Once you get them trained and you get them on a process, like a well-oiled machine, they can generally do things a lot quicker than we can and get stuff done. And once they get into a routine and they know what they're doing, then you're all set. You are golden. Number three, you don't have to put them on a W-2 or a 1099. Generally, it's just an expense that you just expense out because they're not American. They don't have social security numbers, or they don't have working businesses here in this country. You don't have to set all that up. You just pay them, and then you can expense that out as a normal expense, like paid labor, or paid contractor, or whatever. If they are an American domestic VA, then yes, you would, depending on how much you pay them and the setups, you may need to W-2 or 1099, then generally 1099, which does take a few minutes to set up. It's not too hard, and I can probably do a video on that in the upcoming few weeks or months. Okay, so that is another thing to do with the VA there, that you don't really have to put in a lot of work to get them rolling. I would say the other pro, they're not going to steal your business. They're not going to run off and start one down the street. That's always effective. The con is where you get into a lot of trouble with VA. So the language barrier, we'll go up here again, the cons. Language barrier is tough on VAs. You have to really get one that can speak good English if they're from out of the country. If you don't have a domestic one, and you really have to be able to communicate clearly. The way that they type descriptions and titles may not come out the way that you want it to sound, and you'll have to train them until it gets right. They're not here in front of you, so you can't watch over them. You can't show them exactly what you want done. They're just kind of going by the seat of their pants based on what you give them. The other big con, which has always made it hard for me to justify hiring VAs, but we're working on this solution for me and for you guys. If the VA is over there doing the work, I have to take the photos, I have to take the measurements, I have to put the SKU line and the dimensions and the weight and everything in there and send to them so that they can create the draft and all that. Well, I just did half the work, 60%, 70% of the work. Why am I paying them to do anything, right? Like, I should just finish it myself at that point. That's pretty much where I go with that one, and that's always been the problem with me with VAs, because an employee can do it from start to finish. I hand them the bucket of items and say, get to listing. They start photographing and listing and measuring and blah, 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 and their whole thing. But a VA, I got to do half the work for them or more. So that's kind of like just a big problem that I've had. I don't know what you guys think of that. Again, comment section. But yeah, that's been the biggest hurdle with VAs is really me doing most of the work, because they're cheap, they work fast, they can learn. The language barrier's a little problem, but it's not overcomable. Overcomable, is that a word? You can overcome it. But the whole me doing most of the work and then justifying still spending money to pay them, the point of a VA or the point of an employee is to take something completely out of my lap so that I don't have to do all the work, so that my time is freed up to go make deals and do other stuff while they're making me money. Because I'm not going to pay someone $400 for $400 worth of work. I need to pay someone $400 for $800 worth of work or $1,200 worth of work. If they're not freeing me up a lot of time because I'm still doing all the work or most of the work, it's just pointless, right? And that's kind of the problem I've always had with VAs. But once again, we are working on a solution for that, to where you literally would just have to provide photos to a VA and they will do the rest, period. We're working on it. Okay, so yeah, that's pros and cons. VAs versus employees, pretty much broken down the best I can give it to you. I'm sure there's some others you guys will leave in the comment section. Remind me, are there any other pros and cons I'm kind of missing out on here? The money, the time, the language barrier, the stealing your business, and the doing all the work. I think I covered it all, I think. Okay, so one question I get is where can you find a VA if you decide to go the VA route? And of course, Fiverr is a good start. Upwork is a good start. There's a few websites just like those, similar to Fiverr. We are trying to come up with a solution where we have a bunch of VAs that we'll be able to pass on that you guys will be able to use. We're trying to figure that out, how we could get you guys in contact with our VAs to make it kind of work. We'll get back to you on that. But the other $64 million question is, how much should you pay a VA versus how much should you pay an employee? So VAs will typically charge anywhere from $2 or $3 an hour to $4 or $5 an hour. Generally, they don't do piecework. I know some will, but more than likely you're going to pay hourly because they are so affordable and so cheap. Now on the employee side, that's why I'm hiring employees, because of all that inventory that I have to get through, not to mention the inventory I'm looking at, the inventory that's incoming, the inventory that's still in my house that you just seen in the video. Yeah, I need an employee bad. And I'm gonna hire an actual in-person employee. And what should I pay them? Well, there's two solutions. One is by the hour and one is by the piece. And so most people are gonna lean towards the piece work. And here's why. So let's assume that and this doesn't go for anyone that sells high dollar items. If your average sale price is 50 or 75 or 100, you probably shouldn't listen to this. But if you're a normal seller in the 20s and 30s, you sell pieces that are probably profiting you $10 to $15 an item on average. Let's say you're maintaining a $30 sale price and a $15 average profit, right? 50%. If you're paying somebody by the hour, and let's say that they're milking the clock. Let's say that you give them $12 an hour, right? Or $14 an hour, whatever it is, and they can only list 4 items an hour. You're now paying $3, $4 a unit for them to get that item up, right? Because they're only doing 4 an hour. Let's say you're giving them, $14 an hour, so that's 7. That's $370, $375 a unit to get those items up. That's eating into your profits. You're taking away 20, 25% of your profit to them, to pay them. That's tough, right? Most people aren't going to give up that kind of money. Now, if you're making 40 or 50 bucks on an item, what's $3, right? But most of us don't do that. So paying by the piece, if you say, hey, I can give you $2 a unit or $1.50 a unit, generally $1.50 a unit is a good price for someone to take the photos and draw up a draft. You have to do the pricing and all of the finalizing details. If someone can do it all the way through, they might be worth $2 a unit. But if they're working at a steady pace and it's not really complicated items, like it's a remote or a video game or a DVD or a piece of, a t-shirt or a pair of shorts, there's no excuse that an item takes more than 10 minutes, which would mean you can do 6 an hour. You really should be able to do it faster. And if we say 7 an hour at $1.50 a unit, well, that's $10.50. But if they're doing it at $2 a unit, that's $14 an hour. If they're working reasonably fast and they're doing 7 units an hour at $2 a unit, $14 per hour. That's a fair paycheck, right? If they're working, say, six hours a day for you, that's 60 and 24, $84. Let's say they do it 5 days a week. That's $420 a week working 6 hours a day. It's not a half bad part-time gig working 30 hours. If they work full-time, now they can, possibly make $700 a week. Another $175, $200, whatever it is, another $140 an hour, whatever it is. So they'll end up making $560, $600. It's fair for what we're doing. We're not doing manual labor. Minimum wage goes up to 15. So even if they can make $15 an hour, if you just pay them enough to do the $15 an hour, 40 hours is $600 a week. So that's kind of where you're looking at. I would pay by the piece for somebody who just wants to make some extra cash, a college, teenager, high school senior, stay-at-home mom. You got to pay them fair. I'm not, saying that you don't pay them fair and that you're trying to get out on the cheap, but we're also running a business. So you can't be giving somebody, $25 an hour to list data entry on eBay. It's just not going to work, right? So you kind of have to find the fair balance with what they can do, what they're capable of, what you can afford, what's fair for their paycheck, what's not, labor law violations and minimum wage and all of that. So that's kind of where I'll leave you guys on that. What are your opinions? How many of you guys have an employee, or how many of you use a VA? Can you tell me in the description or in the comment section below the description, what do you use, VA or employee, and what kind of pay? If you're comfortable letting us know, you don't have to tell us who it is, but how much do you pay them per piece or per hour, whichever route that you go? How much do you spend? How much do they work? Whatever kind of details you feel comfortable sharing, let me know in the comment section, because it's going to help me out, because I haven't had an employee in quite some time. I used to have them all the time, but now it's just me and Kate, and I want to get back into that. I want to, pay someone and get some more work done. And it'll help other people who are watching this video and reading the comments below. So let's see what happens in the comments and how people pay and what the average is. And I may just go off of that. So we'll have to wait and see. But anyways, that's kind of my comparison. Pros and cons, employees versus VAs. What do you think? I'll wait to see in the comments section. Hit that like button. It helps the YouTube algorithm. It's right below. It turns it blue. It's awesome. It helps me, helps YouTube. It helps you find more videos also that you'll like. And if you could subscribe to the channel, stay subscribed to the channel to catch more videos in the future. News, reseller updates, everything you need to know to make money online. And hopefully I'll see you guys real soon, including tomorrow with an amazing eBay video. Stay tuned for that. And until next time, guys, have a wonderful rest of your night. I'm off to watch Shark Week. Good night, everyone.